This is Unique Smiles, the Facial Paralysis Podcast, and I'm your host, Brian April. Welcome to Unique Smiles, the Facial Paralysis Podcast, which are now available on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast, and are also now available on YouTube by searching Facial Paralysis Podcast. Today, my guest is Elizabeth Robinson. She is a facial paralysis activist, painter, and has facial paralysis from Ramsay Hunt syndrome. She has started a support group on Facebook. And Elizabeth, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Hi, Brian. Thank you. No, I really appreciate you taking the time and doing my little happy dance
There
in
you
Australia.
go. Well, we finally met in person. We at the Facial Paralysis Awareness Day this past year, so that's kind of cool. So
Yes.
I've known you for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah. I think probably about 3 years. I think 3, 4.
Excellent.
Definitely, you were one of the first people I connected with. I think the fact that you had Ramsay Hunt syndrome and your sense of humour was actually really inspiring and just uplifting. And I think there was just an immediate connection between a few of us and maintained that.
I agree, and thank you for that. That was very nice of you to say.
No, you're welcome.
So for those who may be just listening for the first time, or those who don't know, what is Ramsay Hunt syndrome?
Okay, well, Ramsay Hunt syndrome, also known as herpes zoster oticus, is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus that so many of us have had in our childhood. And it reappears as when the chickenpox virus is reactivated, the varicella virus, it reactivates as shingles. And unfortunately, most people, if they get shingles, which is extremely painful, as I know you know and many others know, it comes out in a certain quadrant in the body. With Ramsay Hunt syndrome, the shingles reactivates in the geniculate ganglion, i.e. in the inner ear. And it's a really, really tiny spot where all the cranial nerves meet and the facial nerves go out. So there's no skin and the shingles has nowhere to go. So it travels up the cranial nerves and down the facial nerves and ends up causing facial paralysis. And in my case, it also crushed my auditory nerve and caused me to become deaf in the left-hand side. So it's often confused with Bell's palsy. The big difference is the incredible pain, and also the cause is known. It's shingles.
Definitely can testify to the pain. That is not a good time. So I guess tell us a little bit of your story.
So it was in January 2015. That's our summer, and I was a teacher at a local high school, a French teacher, teaching kindergarten right up into the senior school. And I had a great holiday. I was looking forward to going back to work. There was a very stressful family incident. I don't know if that's what caused it. And it's one of those things, one can't blame any certain event. I think there was just a build-up of stress. And I started getting a really terrible earache and also a toothache. And I thought, I'll just go to the dentist. And then the earache built up to the point where I had to go to the doctor. And I went, this was on the evening, I think, of January the 14th. I went to the doctor and said, look, I've got this piercing earache. And he felt my glands and everything, said there's absolutely nothing wrong. Now, at that stage, because the shingles was activating so deep inside that they couldn't actually see anything, it hadn't appeared on my face or inside my ear. He did say it's a little bit pink, nothing to worry about, the glands aren't swollen, etc. Whatever. And I said, well, could the earache coming from my teeth? And well, that's possible as well. So went home. I was staying with my sister at the time. She said to me when I walked in that my face looked funny and my eye was a bit glazed. And I looked in the mirror and couldn't really see it. It didn't look like I think it was overtired. Went to sleep, woke up at 4 a.m., went to splash some water in my face to cool down and sort of ran down my face. And I turned on the bathroom light and my face had dropped. So that was 4 o'clock. And of course, I went on to Dr. Google. And at the time, I knew I wasn't having a stroke. They said, oh, you should have called an ambulance. But having done senior first aid and everything, I did all the instant checks for stroke, lifting my arm. Can I do this? Can I make this? Yep. I just knew it wasn't a stroke. Found Bell's palsy online. Thought, well, it could be that, but I'm in this incredible pain. And then read that a tooth abscess can cause facial paralysis. So I waited till the morning, got an emergency appointment with the dentist, went in, they took an x-ray. One of my teeth, in fact, the nerves had died, but they were actually fantastic. I was a dentist who saved me. He said, you've got to go to doctors and get this checked out. And this is on the Friday. I said, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment Monday. And he said, no, you need to go to hospital straight away. The pain got worse and worse and worse. It just was intensifying. And then by the time I went to the hospital, I couldn't close my eye. They checked me out for a stroke. They were in fact going to what's the word when they discharged me.
Mm-hmm.
The intern was going to discharge me when she said it wasn't a stroke. And I just looked and I said, no, I'm not going home. My sister's with me too. She said, she's not going home. We want an answer here. The doctor on the rounds came in, took one look at me, and he was the one who went to action mode with CT scans. They didn't do an MRI. And I got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, but the neurosurgeon didn't see him back till about 5 o'clock. By that time, my face was frozen. I couldn't close my left eye, and the pain was just unbearable in my left ear, and it was bright red. You could see the vesicles were starting to form on the outside of the ear. They were the ones who said I had Ramsay Hunt syndrome and said I needed to see a doctor, get an MRI, and gave me a script for antivirals and prednisone and sent me home, which wasn't great, really.
So they didn't admit you to the hospital.
No, because I have since checked, and the protocol, especially coming out of America for Ramsay Hunt syndrome, is they are suggesting IV antivirals because the taking them orally is just not strong enough. You need to get them in straight away. The co-cortisone, the prednisone, and the antivirals. But they just seemed to think it was like, oh, you'll be okay. And I wasn't. I've never really recovered.
I was going to say, do you have vestibular issues? Did you?
Yes, especially from the hearing loss. That took a while to adjust. The first 18 months, I used a walking stick because I'd fall over a lot. In fact, the worst thing was I fell down the stairs and broke my ankle one year. And then 2 years ago, I slipped in the kitchen because I can't hear distance and direction of sound. And the phone rang, and I did a quick turn in the kitchen. There was water on the floor and fell over and broke my wrist. So, yeah, they've been pretty bad. I kept insisting I had vertigo. The ENT said I didn't, sent me off the test, and in fact, I did. I had BPPV, which is a benign positional paroxysmal vertigo. It's basically when the crystals have escaped from the inner ear and they do an Epling maneuver, and so the crystals will come back in. And that helped a lot. I still now, 5 years on, it'll be 5 years in January, I have terrible tinnitus in my left ear. It's settled down a lot, but I still will get occasional bouts of vertigo or more dizziness or just that feeling of like I just don't know where I am, and that might last for a few days, and then stop. So often, usually when it's really really hot, that plays havoc with my nerves.
Hmm, that's interesting.
So yeah, the vestibular issues are a big part of Ramsay Hunt syndrome.
So uh, how did that affect you, like you emotionally in the beginning?
Woo! How long have you got? Um, I'm laughing now, but I wasn't laughing then. Really badly. I went into a really dark place. I, especially the first, I'd say for about 2 years. I there are times where I really just didn't want to live anymore. My life changed. I didn't want to be out in public. Um, it just and it was just a roller coaster of emotions, especially the first few months. I think when it got to the 6 month mark, and I wasn't really getting any better. Um, but something turned on the 2 year mark, and I'd say now I'm I'm in a really good place emotionally and socially and psychologically. But that first, especially that first year, and that's a message that I like to get out to a lot of people through my group and that I talk to. And as you know, there is no shame in feeling depressed. And I think it's really important that when one acquires facial paralysis, be it through Ramsay Hunt syndrome, Bell's palsy, trauma, AN removal, all the multiple reasons that it can happen, to seek professional help, to seek out a psychologist or a counselor, because there's this incredible loss of self and identity, and so much emphasis in our society placed on smiles and beauty, and it's so hard to cope with on one's own. And family and friends, no matter how understanding they try to be, they don't get it, and I don't blame them. It's too hard to get, and so yeah, it was hard. It
Well,
was hard. It was tough.
yeah, it's definitely a really tough time. You actually answered one of the things I was going to ask about advice for people who just recently acquired facial paralysis. Do you have any other additional advice?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to sound like I'm self-promoting, but I but join my group. Uh,
That-
look, I think it's
That's what we do, right? We're trying to just we're trying to reach out to people and help them in any way we can. So
what is, and the reason, and one of the reasons I started my group was there's so little information in Australia and Sydney. Yeah, we're just inspired by the facial paralysis support group in America, and then inspired that there wasn't really much here in Australia, and then prompted by friends who were saying to me, "Oh, Elizabeth, you're always posting really positive stuff and really good stuff, and why don't you just start your own group?" So I did. I took the plunge and just one didn't realize how easy it was going to be, as a closed or a private group on Facebook. Just set it up, and automatically added all my friends that have facial paralysis, whether they liked it or not. So I had a little base group to start with, and amazingly, it's just it's grown to now over 600 members
wow.
in just over 2 years, and the group is just there. It's there for support. And the thing is that support groups can have the disadvantages that they can drag you down if people are always posting up really terrible and hard stories, which they are. And there was a group that was on a, a Ramsay Hunt syndrome group, not the one in America, but another one, and it was just full of doom and gloom. And so I set out, thought, no, I want a group that offers support where people feel that can come on and vent, but also get information. So I like to post up a mixture of medical information that people can have access to. People can post their stories, and it's turned into something that's even beyond my control. That people have connected so much from across the world in it that it feels to me it's a bit like a family. We can um, all have a laugh on it, post up funny things, sad things, share stories, and just know that we're not alone. And I think that's the biggest factor in having facial paralysis, is that feeling of isolation. I am the only person in the world that has this. And then when we meet other people, either online or face to face, forgive the pun, that have facial paralysis, and you can share how you feel and things that the difficulties that and challenges you might face, you go, wow, I'm not alone. And it's, for me, it's almost like belonging now to a special club.
So, what is the name of this group?
The name of the group
And where can people find
is,
it? I'm sorry.
they can find it on Facebook. So it's Facial Paralysis Support Network, Australia, New Zealand, World.
And that's open to anyone for facial paralysis from any cause.
Yep, there are over 50 causes of facial paralysis. If you've got one of those, um, if you've got facial paralysis from one of those causes, you are more than welcome to join. And also, there are often people, partners, who have joined in order to have a greater understanding of what is going on. So it's open to, and there are certain questions to be asked. And I try and be vigilant that because there are always people in the world who want to scam and want to
Self
and just
promote
aren't
and
genuine.
yeah.
So I try and be as vigilant as I possibly can in checking people. And there's a big crossover between the two groups. A lot of people are on the Facial Paralysis Support Network. Well, I call it the American one, and also on the single-sided deafness support group, SSD. So it's sort of quite funny sometimes, you'll post something on one group and then you'll see the name pop up in another group.
I have no idea what you're
Uh,
talking about. I would never do that. Never.
no, no, no.
Where do you think these podcasts go?
Well, and I think that's the great thing about it. It's really good. Like, I'm not precious about my group. I mean, I call it my group, but it's I like to refer to it as our group. Uh, it, it's there for anyone, everyone, and it also it's an ebb and flow. People come on to support groups. They come and they go. They find the support that they need, and sometimes they don't find the support they need or want. And that's just the ebb and flow of life and support groups in general.
So one more time, the name of your Facebook group is
Facial Paralysis Support Network, Australia, New Zealand, World.
very cool. So let me ask you this: what
Yeah.
about fatigue? Do you, with Ramsay Hunt, a lot of people talk about
Oh,
chronic fatigue and just have you experienced that?
yes, definitely. This is something again that's so hard to explain because one gets the usual, oh, everyone's tired. Sometimes the fatigue is just so overwhelming. I can't get out of bed or I can't move. And I have a lot of pain, not just in my face, but in the rest of my body. And also, I suffer from hearing loss exhaustion. So, if I've been in a really noisy environment where I'm trying to concentrate and focus and maybe picking up, 50, 60% of the conversation if I'm lucky, my brain's working overtime. My brain's working overtime to stand up straight with the vestibular issues. My brain's working overtime to hear conversations. And then it just seems with RHS that people get this terrible fatigue. I've had all the tests for it. Of course, been told, no, you don't have chronic fatigue. You don't have any of the markers. But my question today is, well, I'm not imagining it. Um, and not only am I not imagining it, but everyone I know on the group and otherwise who has Ramsay Hunt syndrome complains of the fatigue. So I don't know, there has to be something there, but of course, I don't think it's considered. One of the big problems is research, and for research it requires money, and the money usually goes to bigger and what are considered, more important areas to research because, with Ramsay Hunt syndrome, the attitude is, well, we know what caused it, and we know the medicines that can be given, the pharmaceutical products that can be given. So I suppose then, unless we find some young neurologist, someone who's really, really passionate about Ramsay Hunt syndrome, that the moment we're just going to be tired.
And it's crazy to me how like I'm 10 years post onset and I still just get so tired and it's crazy. And you tell people and like you said they go, "Oh yeah, everyone gets tired." And you're like, "No, no, no, no. This is this is not tired."
Yeah, and yeah, it is crazy, and it can suddenly like hit. I mean, I can be up doing something and fine, and then suddenly, bang, it just comes over me. I've got to lie down. So yeah, it is crazy,
It's
and
very
but
strange.
but you know,
Are there any misconceptions people have about you because of facial paralysis?
yes, probably the big misconception is because it's a double whammy. Because of my hearing loss, I will tilt my head to my good side and will furrow the one brow that I can furrow. The other one's just permanently paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
um, it's because I'm really concentrating. So I know myself that physically, and people have told me, I've asked them that I'm giving off these strange signals of my actual body placement is unusual because I'm turning my head and looking like I'm really concentrating. And the other misconception is that people think I'm really angry all the time or I'm really unhappy. And because basically because I can't full smile. I've never recovered. So the left hand side of my face, my lips don't move at all. Um, I've had facial physiotherapy, which has been absolutely fantastic here in Sydney, and by the wonderful Dr. Ellie Seckhold. I give her a plug because she's great. Um, and you guys got the great Jackie Deals over there. So that has helped. And again, then it becomes the Botox roller coaster because, as you know, and I don't know if the listeners know, but Botox is fantastic for the synkinesis, which is the causes the muscle spasms and a lot of the pain. So, and that's catch 22 as well, because sometimes with the Botox, it will stop the pain, but then I can't move at all. Um, and then because of the synchronicity, it pulls the left hand side of my mouth down, so I look like I'm frowning a lot. So yeah, so it gets back to your original question. The misconception is that um, I can be grumpy or angry. So I have learnt to really try and animate with the top third of my face, which is also a bit hard because my eye closes a lot. But I've tried techniques where I sort of, when I meet people, turn my face more on the good side and try and be very, very animated, um, more animated with my voice and animated with my hands and what facial movements I've got to try and get across that I'm a nice person.
And you are a nice
Try
person,
to
so
be.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
you know, most of the
that's one
time,
fat
and
one.
then no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, but it is hard, and I think too that I know now, 5 years on, I've done a lot of work internally and externally. Not operations, but really trying to accept it and work with it, rather than fighting against it. It's like, well, it is what it is. I could spend my whole time crying and curled up in a fetal position, but you get hungry, you've got to get up and keep going, and I think that's the only thing. One has to keep moving forward and trying to reach a place of acceptance. It isn't easy. By no means I think it's easy, but I know when I came probably last year after my trip to America, I found myself in a really, really good place of acceptance that this is what it is. I can't change it. And more importantly, I came to that place of acceptance of I'm still me inside, and I'm I'm a good person. I'm a kind person. Not everyone likes me, but not everyone has to like me. And when it sounds corny, I know, but when I reached that place of acceptance, it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was a lot happier.
I totally agree with that and can
Yeah,
totally relate to that. So,
yeah.
uh,
And look,
yeah,
Brian. I mean, I'm not here going, oh, like, yes, we have to reach pace of peace and acceptance. It's not easy, but I found that anger was eating me up, and I was wasting valuable and precious time and harming relationships around me by being angry all the time. So I had to say, well, okay. And I can honestly say that starting the group and meeting people across the world on the group, my neurologist said to me, "Oh, you're so tired and everything. Do you have the energy for this? Why have you started this group?" And I said, "Well, it's the only way I can make sense of what has happened to me is by helping other people." So I can honestly say that starting the group and meeting other people and talking to other people has helped me reach a place of acceptance.
Yeah, I think the more you talk about it and the more you verbalize it and just get it out of your system, it really helps. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Like the more you, even if
Mm.
it's to a friend or to a therapist, but especially if it's to somebody who understands and knows what you're going through, that just
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more the lighter it gets over time because you just start getting that heaviness
Yes.
out of you. So I
Yes.
agree a
Yes.
thousand percent that's
Yeah.
really a great way to go. Now you do painting and you do
Yes.
something really interesting with that in regards with facial paralysis. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's sort of like a funny story too, because I never painted in my life. In the first year, I was getting really bad, what I can only describe as fibromyalgia. They thought it was rheumatoid arthritis, and my hands were getting really crippled. I would have to sort of like in the mornings, so almost crawl my way into the shower to get hot water on it to release and get my hands moving. So I was sitting at home and I thought, this is crazy. I've got to take control and I've got to do something that's going to help me overcome my isolation, overcome my social anxiety, because I haven't been able to work. Um, I was teaching. I've actually had to quit my job as teaching. They held my job over for me, but it got to the point like, well, I can't come back. I mean, slurring, stuttering is not great for a language teacher.
No.
um, no, and not being able to hear, as though we're carrying out conversation classes. But anyway, so I was just looking through on Facebook and saw the local college, community college, was having a beginner's art class, and it was on during the day, and it's really close to me. And I thought, oh, I can handle this. So I went along, and to my great joy, delight, and surprise, found out that I could actually paint. And in fact, my very first big painting was of um, a broken face. And then I don't know, I just sort of it became quite cathartic. So what I do is I take famous portraits, say for example, self-portrait of Frida Kahlo or Venus by Botticelli, and I paint their face, but I give them facial paralysis. And what I actually do as well is I paint the nose in gold, which is based on the Japanese cruel theory, or some people call it kintsugi. Excuse my Japanese pronunciation, I'm sure that's probably wrong. Where they believe if a ceramic bowl is broken, they fix it with gold and say that the repaired product is even more beautiful than the original, because we all carry scars and we're all broken, and we need to carry those scars and that brokenness not as sadness but as a sign of beauty. And so for me, the paintings became also a bit of a challenge to people. Some people find them quite confronting, but it was like, well, I challenge you to say this portrait is not beautiful. The most recent one I've done is the girl with the pearl earring, and I found an app where I could actually put my face into the portrait. So I painted my face as the girl with the pearl earring, um, and sort of given it facial paralysis, and the eyes smaller and the mouth is turned down, and there's also a certain sadness to them and a certain beauty to them. I know, and I've been so delighted because I post them up in the group sometimes. People have written to me just saying that they've been really touched by them. And for me, that outweighs so much that a painting, that an amateur painting that I can do can touch people, because the people have reached me and said, "This is how I feel." And that's exciting and very, very, very touching and very moving, and yeah,
That's really cool. And
yeah,
I think it just goes to show, just like with the little shift of perspective in your mind and attitude, what a difference that can make in your life.
yeah. Painting has become my safe place. And it's interesting, at first when I was doing the paintings, it was sort of cathartic, and I'd get really quite distressed. Um, now when I do them, I really enjoy doing these spaces, and even had an argument, but a heated discussion from my art colleagues that I get on really well with. He was getting really annoyed, and he goes, "Stop painting that. You don't look like that. Your face doesn't look like that. It's, you're far more beautiful than that." And I was like, "It's okay. I still think it's beautiful." I said, "But I'm representing. My eyes closed, my mouth turned down, and that's just the way it is." And I still think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It is.
Um,
It is.
it really is. And I guess that kind of leads into my last question is, what do you say to people who are afraid to pursue their hobbies or go outside because of facial paralysis?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Dig deep and do it. And see, it might be a cliche what I'm going to say, but see it as a marathon, not a sprint. I know it's taken me close to 5 years. I don't hesitate to get dressed, go out now and do what I want to do. The only thing that will stop me now is the fatigue factor. Whereas at the beginning, I look at photos, I hid my face, I was embarrassed, I was upset, I was angry, and I thought my life was over. And I look back now and I think I wasted so much time and emotional energy, but that's what happened. So I suppose in hindsight, my advice would be to people is it does get better. We think it doesn't, and physically it might not, but emotionally and psychologically we get better. We have to learn to not worry about what other people think. I was in a good position before I got Ramsay Hunt syndrome, is I really couldn't care less what people thought of me. I really didn't. I mean, I wouldn't go my way to harm people, but I was just like, oh, whatever. There's how many billion people on the planet, that person doesn't like me, whatever. I don't care. So I had that resilience and strength before I got it, before I got facial paralysis.
Mm.
So now it's harnessing that for everyone who gets it. Go, what does it matter? Yeah, like the pain is awful, what we lose is awful, but we're still the same people inside. And if other people want to stare, that's just going to happen. And if other people want to stare, look, make comments, that's their issue, not our issue. Yeah, does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah, just go out and enjoy life and live life, and having to accept, like, there are certain things I can't do anymore that I used to do. I used to love dancing and drumming, but I can't do that anymore. But now I can paint, and I would never known I painted if I hadn't got Ramsay Hunt syndrome. And the other, I'm going to say something really that might appear really corny, but I remember saying this at the facial paralysis awareness day that we met at, and I really truly mean it. If someone said to me now, we're going to give you back your face as it was, but you're going to lose contact and never be able to meet or talk to any of the friends that you've made along the way with facial paralysis, I know I would can honestly say, I say, no, get it. I'm going to keep my face. Thank you very much the way it is. Because in this journey, and it is a journey, I have met some of the most amazing, inspirational, great people that I am honoured and privileged to call my friends. Just amazing people that I would never have met before. And I think somehow it's really how we all have to turn that, when we get facial paralysis for whatever reason, shift in our thinking, that our life is just taking a new direction.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking the time out today and talking with us, sharing your story. And it's always Always great talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.